The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real, and as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God, stepping in score, Sunyazala, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. And as I always say, this show is about my element of hip-hop, what I like to say and describe it as the writer of art on art and science on music. The only show in history on the hip-hop writer element that I, a veteran of at least 25 years, helped to pioneer, further develop, and really articulate what so many of the legends started before me, and make it a legitimate thing, you know. So that's what it is. Hey, interesting show. I just wanted to throw a whole bunch of vignettes, little, you know, I haven't done a lot of segments, so I really want to dive into a lot of different type of segments that I've been thinking about, segments that I see. And by the way, you know what I'm saying? You know, for a while now, I've been thinking like R&B is horrible, and R&B, you know, soul music today is horrible. But I'm going to make like a big segment or make it a continuous thing, because for a long time, I've been playing an R&B singer that I love as much as like some of my favorite singers of the 80s and even 70s, you know? And so I think it was worth it to go dig for some R&B. And we'll just put R&B. I think R&B should be put into a context of hip-hop, because no matter what, it always takes from hip-hop, whether you want to say it's blatant theft or it's legitimate influence, it's always taking. Just like I said, my very first column I ever wrote was called The 3 R's That Feed and Starve Hip-Hop. Right? It was called Radio, Record Labels, and R&B. The 3 R's. So I want to give a little build about R&B soon. You know what I'm saying? Just put that out there. You know what I mean? And a lot of stuff happened since the last show. Got to say, Remembered Imperfection, the Chadwick Boseman, a great actor, someone was always involved in hip-hop in some way as like a real supporter. And for me personally, though, the 6 degrees of separation is very small. So definitely want to say that, you know, put that out there. Hey, and we're doing the show on September 7th, the God Day. So I want to throw some different segments that are different that you wouldn't expect. But because it's September 7th, I have to put that plug out there. And I had just realized that when we were coming in here that, you know, and say Remembered Imperfection, always the Tupac. And you know, one thing you always hear about Tupac, which I have this big piece I wrote. I think it still might be on premierhiphop.com if you search. Maybe not. I may be saving it for something else. But I consider Tupac not only a GOAT candidate, but probably the most unique GOAT candidate. So all of the reasons that you wouldn't say someone is a GOAT, right? He actually fails those criteria. So a lot of the things that you say he has to have to be a GOAT, he kind of like fails compared to other MCs. You know what I mean? Like there's no way around it. Like if you go technical gifts and things like that, let's just use the typical Biggie example. Biggie, who's nowhere near GOAT candidacy to me. But Biggie's technical skills are top notch, it's top level. And we're spoiled because we're from New York City. Pretty much a ton of MCs had those lyrical gifts, technical gifts. Tupac didn't have that, but Um, Tupac had something that almost no MC has. And I'm not talking about charisma or anything like that, because that's an easy pick. But songwriting ability. Actually writing about concepts, actually writing about stories, and actually having a thematic character. This is why we was getting mad at him, because he had such a easy flow of redefining his persona at every turn. And yet still being that oppressed, young, gifted, and black, oppressed black male. You know what I mean? Like, young, gifted, and oppressed black male. He always had that. You know what I mean? No matter if he was more thugged out or more savage here, if you really listen closely, which it took me a while because I didn't do it. I was one of those East Coast brothers that was mad at Tupac when he returned to the essence. Or even, shit, I was mad when he was on All Eyes on Me, because I thought like he was pandering too much to West Coast sound, a sound that a lot of people can appreciate today, but clearly was a lower level of musicianship. There's no way around it. You compare the best of New York production. We'll just use the Illmatic tables and add RZA. You know, Large Pro, Pete Rock, DJ Premier, RZA. What am I thinking? Oh, Boot Camp. Yeah, Boot Camp. Boot Camp is really important. Boot Camp is really important because Beatminerz doesn't get that much credit because of the yet their filtering of drums, the way they used everything, the sample game. You know what I mean? You know, everything is so important. But when you compare that to what the West Coast was doing, though, which was using bad sample, you know, compared to the New York, bad sample digging, all that kind of stuff. You could hear All Eyes on Me back then and see it as a lesser record, you know what I mean? But because Tupac had so much time, so much space in those two albums worth, over 90 minutes of work, you could see that he was basically delivering a lot of his themes and insights in just a different, a more angry, a more savage persona, a more savage side, a more angrier side. You know what I mean? And you can really get it because there's not much difference, or there's very little separation between between levels of anger, whether it's savage anger from the street or you know, anger of the militant that's soon to be revolutionary. You know, but just some thoughts on that. I always considered him a GOAT MC. I liken him, I think the best way I could describe it, as I always do, if you see somebody else describe it like that, they bit. But as a writer and a songwriter, I consider him a hip-hop Langston Hughes. A simpler language, simpler layering, but he always captured the voices of people superbly. And of course, the best captured voice was his voice. You know what I mean? Not just the voices of the people and the stories of the people he was speaking to, because he did that just like Langston Hughes. So just some thoughts. You know what I mean? I want to let's start off these segments though, right? In fact, I was going to let's start off the segments though with an addendum to the Nas album review that I did. That was mainly the main thing of the theme of the last episode, the King's Medications build that I called it. All the ideas about Nas's album, and just a quick cover. And I just want to go through something because I can, you know, because I got this space here and we could bomb people. We can do that, right? We could bomb people. The obviously, some of the major themes that I had that I want to reiterate, make sure that they're clear. One of the problems that hurts so much music, though, is this idea of grown man rap. I said last episode that grown man rap started to be a thing when people try to define really intelligent albums that veer away from what the artist once did. So it was perfect. As an analogy, it seemed perfect. I'm going to say seemed. It seemed perfect as an analysis when De La Soul made Stakes is High. That's the first time I ever saw it written in the media and in the magazines I worked for. When I was going into all these different magazines, that's the first time that I heard it put back. Heard that phrase. And a lot of people think that they made up the phrases that they use to describe records and stuff. And I laugh. When people say stuff like, "Oh, Biggie's a MC and Tupac's an entertainer, he's this and he's that," this is grown man rap. You guys didn't make up any of that stuff. These are not your insights. You're regurgitating stuff that was written countless times. You know what I mean? And a lot of grown man rap, what it's become is not really like De La Soul, where they've grown up and they have insights, they have themes, they have songs, they have metaphors, they get deeper, they're more mature. Grown man rap is just really more talk about female relationships. Let's be honest. That's really what grown man rap is becoming defined as. So you could make the most crappiest, disco-fied, trappy, clubby record, but if you're talking about relationships, now all of a sudden you're some grown rap genius. Because where were all these people claiming this when Ghostface made album after album detailing relationship woes perfectly? You know what I mean? And remember Ghost Dini? Right? That was a good album. Even the songs that were too pop, I was like, wow, this is what he did. He did it on purpose to pitch out there. And by the way, hey, wait a minute. I said a lot of stuff about this guy, but just a little question: who is the president of that label when Ghost Dini went nowhere? You know what I mean? Ghost Dini went nowhere. Was that Jay-Z? Was that another quality record that should have blown up, shuffled under the rug? You know what I mean? I don't know. I gotta do some research on that. But anyway. The point was, right, MCs like Ghostface have had East Coast hardcore, never lost the soul aspect of RZA's production in his choices of production, and continue to make songs that had intimate details. That's what we say, right? Intimate details. You know, whether about relationships, whether it's about the realities of life, all of those things. And I've never heard anyone write about it, talk about it, and say Ghostface gives you grown man rap. So what is this grown man rap thing? It's being used to justify the fact that Nas used a lot of crossover music that to my ears, this is not really probably not the truth, but to my ears, who has so much progressive music. And that's why I started the show and I mentioned all of these MCs that have multiple works, right? That have multiple works and much more progressive music that his record has to be compared to this batch, okay? Just because Nas chooses the shittiest B-level all-stars doesn't mean that that's what we're comparing it to. Oh, yeah, he's still king. Look, Big Sean is all right, but he's not comparing to Nas. Big Sean is not the competition for Nas. The competition for all artists are the best of that genre. That's how we do it here, though. If you don't like it, though, you tune away from the Power Right Show. You know what I mean? You turn on Ebro, you turn on something else. You turn on anything else that's talking about some other shit and saying it's grown man rap. So I liked it for what it was. You know what I mean? All my meals go inside my body. So they have all the same standards. You know what I'm saying? They're all going in the same body. They're all going to have the same standards, the highest standards. To me, King's Disease gets a cliche cop-out to say it's grown man rap. And a lot of it is because he was talking about female issues. I think it's grown man rap because he talked about a complete array of issues on a deep level. You know what I mean? And as always, though, Nas has great concepts. You know what I mean? You know, he doesn't know how to make a commercial pop song, but yet he showed on the record that he was able to make a pop concept, like Car 85 and things. You know what I mean? The way he was able to do stuff like that was real, it's GOAT level stuff. It's GOAT level stuff. And I like experimentation. So even I'm not so mad about picking wrong commercial beats or whatever like that, or even trying Hit Boy, even though I would have never, ever said to use Hit Boy. You know what I mean? Yeah, definitely not that. That would have been, yeah. But what were some of the other ideas? Hey, I made a mistake about Big Sean, though. I was trashing Big Sean, and he had said Picasso. I draw Picasso, The Art of War and stuff, and I was saying that Art of War was by Machiavelli or Sun Tzu, right? Because they both wrote the same title book. But obviously he was doing a babyish concept and saying, I draw like The Art of War, get it? Picasso, blah, very cute. You know what I mean? So, hey, editor's note, I understand the cutesiness of the weak bar. You know what I mean? Still a weak bar. Okay? Still a weak bar. This is you have on it, though. You know what it's like, though? It's like if Jordan played a game, though, and then they put Rudy. Remember Rudy, the movie? Rudy? About the kid that gets to play for college and he goes to Jordan is in the finals, though, right? And then he lets Rudy come in and take a jumper. That's what having Big Sean in a song is, But I also made this other point. This is a musical point I have, though, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit more, was this idea of the auto-tune robotic voice being one of the things that has destroyed black music since the 80s. You know what I mean? Everybody overuses it. Everybody thinks it's so next level. And usually when it's overused, it makes for very dated music. And in the future, King's Disease will be dated because of those things that he did in that record with that, I think they need to be used in the minimal level. I think they can't be the core of let's say, the singing or the chorus aspect of whatever you use it for. I think if we're doing the compare and contrast I'm talking about, I think Afro Street 2 by Napoleon, the few songs that he used that auto-tune robotic singing stuff, it worked out much better as a tool as opposed to the vehicle. You know what I mean? I can never forgive Nas for making me slip up out there in these streets, these cold, grimy streets where we need hardcore musicianship, and I'm out here having Lil Durk sing me a tune, you know what I mean, with robots aiding him. It just gonna have a hard time with that, you know what I mean? Definitely a hard time with that. But yo, check this out. Probably the most important addendum, though, is the trash that Rolling Stone spewed. And I just pointed out, though, as the epitome and why this is important, why journalism, why music history writing has to be written by us, has to be us, why it was so important for me to say this writing element, this writing that I do since 95, I said it, has to be more than just writing about people, but has to be an element where we creatively engage in hip-hop and have some merit in it, where we're part of the culture, where we embed ourselves in the culture more than just looking down on it or looking across to it. And the Rolling Stone article by, and it's all cliche, it's a white kid that clearly knows nothing about hip-hop at all, proves it immediately, writes the piece, and this is how he titled it. He said, Nas's King Disease gets derailed by petty misogyny. The Queensbridge icon's legendary storytelling chops are undercut by his increasingly bad politics on his first album in 8 years. It's hard to start an article with a subtitle like that, and you already made a mistake because it's not his first album in 8 years. My producer has a Kanye shirt, though, so he knows that. Oh, it's not a Kanye shirt? It's a Kanye-like shirt? I don't know. It's a Kanye-like shirt, likeness shirt. But Anyway, the point being, though, he did the album with Kanye just a few years ago, 2018, covered in my book, The Filtered Real. Plugs, right? DM me at Sunez on the Instagram. Get your copy. But he goes on to say something that we're going to have to address eventually. You know what I mean? The misogyny of Nas's record is simply because he constantly says positive things about women, but then also denounces the claims or the attacks against him by his exes, you know, by his baby mamas, you know. And what's interesting is that the author wrote this article as if what Khalees and what Carmen wrote are actually verifiably true. You see? So what I find interesting, though, is that if Nas makes songs, which he has done on the Lost Tapes too, he did on Life is Good, and he did throughout Lost Tapes too, right? He had 2 significant songs there, and significant songs on King's Disease that deliberately talk against let's say the slander that he sees on his part, right? So if a woman says something because of this Me Too movement, it's automatically true and absolutely verifiable. If a man denounces something or says something, it's not true at all. It's actually not true, and it's purporting misogyny. You see, this is the whole thing, and I think this hurts everything that we as a society ought to be about, because to me, that's not really protecting women. You know what I mean? Women have shown time and again that they could be as dirty as any other individual human, right? And have people lynched, have people jailed, have people punished for things that aren't true. So how could we just admit that certain things are true, though, right? We always talk about justice, though, but justice has to come with proofs of judgment. You know what I mean? And this whole article, aside from the fact that he knows nothing, he's comparing this album to Illmatic, which is a really bad comparison. It's just filled with holes galore. And he attacks him for dissing Doja Cat, which means he didn't do his research about what Doja Cat was saying. He says he's misogynist because he attacked Gayle King in the interview with Kobe, which means that you did no research about Kobe. It's just really, really horrible writing. And Rolling Stone let this go because they thought it would be slick, and they don't give a damn. You know what I mean? And just one of the worst articles I've ever read. Trash, complete 100% trash. Now, because we're talking about trash, I'm going to segue into another segment called Trampling Tweets, right? And I wanted to continue on. I have a lot of Trampling Tweets that are going to get real full segments because they bring up great issues of people's mishaps on Twitter. They lead to great issues, you know what I mean? Because people say some wild shit on Twitter. But I'm still on that tweet where this guy was claiming that Snoop Dogg 92-94 is the greatest MC run ever. I never heard such silly talk in my life. And he said it was greater than Nas's 94-96 run. Nas's 95 features blow Snoop out the box. This man did verbal intercourse. You know what I mean? Eye for an eye. And I'm forgetting the name. What's the name of the song with Cool G Rap on 4, 5, 6? Right? Those 3 songs are worthy of a run. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's not what I wanted to add on. What I wanted to add on though is like what do I think is the longest, greatest MC run? I gotta say, I think it's KRS-One 87 to 97. Because I think that KRS-One never faltered. We can't include this run and say the run has to be every single year, because MCs back then didn't always release albums every single year, especially in the 90s. So it's unfair, to compare it to like today, where artists will release at least one work every year. So the run has to be just in the consistency. So I give it to like a 2-year gap. So you have with KRS-One, you do have you don't have a longer gap than 2 years. So it's either 1 year or 2 year gap. So I considered it in that run. So 87 to 97, you got Criminal Minded, By All Means Necessary, Ghetto Music, Edutainment, right? So that's 87, 88, 89, 90, Edutainment, 92, Sex and Violence, right? Then you have 1993 when he's officially solo, or at least on the name is going solo, not Boogie Down Productions. Return of the Boom Bap. Then 95 is KRS-One's self-titled album. And then 1997, I Got Next. A lot of people don't put I Got Next in there. And it's a very interesting record, I Got Next, when you listen to I Got Next, if there was a record where you wanted to see, where's a record where KRS-One just uses mainly techniques and isn't really giving you lots of song concepts of depth, like where you're not hammered over the head with like philosophical or socio-political thoughts, it would be I Got Next. But there's so many techniques that he's using on I Got Next that I had to include it in that run. You know what I mean? After that, I feel like KRS-One started to really taper off in the 2000s, and not because he stopped rhyming good, but because his beat picking became very like, he favored a very basic break beat, and it just became really, really stale, to say the least. But there are still some great songs, but the catalog is consistently quality, but not great again. You know what I mean? But that run from 87 to 97 is still my pick for the greatest run of an MC. The longest and strongest run. You're not going to see that. I can say you're not going to see that again, but MCs release in such bulk that you might be able to see it again. And that's why, honorable mention, I'd probably have to say, I'd have to give it immediately to Ka. Because I have been considering Ka's work as classic or as near classic as possible since 2012 with the release of Grief Pedigree. And the albums and the EPs that he has released until then, to today, 2020, are the only reason that they wouldn't all be classic is because they end up having to be compared now to the real competition in Ka's catalog. And the real competition to Ka's catalog is himself. Is literally himself, because no one makes music this cerebral and this introspective cerebral. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like a tormented soul, but inside, making music that is void of break beats, void of that tempo that is like a rock battle bar tempo. Although there are battle bars in there, but really about the psyche of that life that he had in the streets. You ask all the great MCs, including the MC I'm going to feature today, and they're all influenced or inspired by him in some kind of way. You know what I mean? And that particular way is, it's for everybody to judge. I don't think that I think people, the worst that they could bite out of Ka is rhyming off drumless breaks. And that's a good thing. Like, that's because what happens is that it kind of exposes the guys who can't rhyme, and it also makes people that do that have to dig for better musical samples. And I found one of the great things about Ka's music, which also is rooted in Rock Marciano as one of his teachers in this, in production, that he gives credit to. I thought that what was gonna ruin the Invisible Renaissance in the early 2010s, when I was calling it the Invisible Renaissance, one worry hit me was the lack of breakbeat quality. The breakbeats were good. They have all the equipment now to make those breakbeats sound right. You know what I mean? Fruity Loops, whatever it is, everything you're using. But a lot of the great MCs, they got obsessed with the breakbeats, and we were hearing a lot of stale breakbeats, like breakbeats we already know. You know what I mean? And sometimes MCs, they can be their worst production. They can be the worst for themselves because they can do the worst for themselves because they kind of pick what inspires, and they don't always notice that what inspires could be the same type of break, you know? And that happens with certain albums where you hear the same break again and again, you know what I mean? But that was definitely my choice. I also, because I said the greatest long runs, I'm going to throw it out there. I have to put Rock Marciano there too, because his run starts from Mossberg all the way to to last year, last year's release. That's a 10-year run. You know what I mean? That's a 10-year run, and it's powerful. And it probably might be more influential than Ka because more people were biting Rock Marciano blatantly, than they were Ka. You know what I mean? Rock Marciano is the stylist to me of the last 10 years. Most of the styles that you see bitten and influencing are coming from him, But next segment here, I wanted to read something from the Filtered Reel. Filtered Reel is on sale. DM me, Sunez, or at Instagram. I'm Sunez on Instagram, Sunez7, number 7. On Twitter. So, get at me there. Get at me there for your own copy of The Invisible Renaissance, the Filtered Reel. This is the first and greatest book about these last 10 years. And just want to read you an art and art piece for this art and art recital. I wrote this for Marquis, one of my favorite MCs, who had an LP, Femme Fatale, in 2017. Don't really have a title for this particular poem, but it went like this. Complete freedom is the palette of the poet in a song. They wonder of general themes and place flowers into the grass of their technicalities. Seeds of intention are everywhere. Rhymes of soil, sounds that change, yet so familiar to the prior. You'll hear the petals let raindrops smash snares on their lush bars, and hummingbirds of the other elements inspect and invent with fluttering hearts. A blooming cipher continues just by the lushness of the voice, serving as a pollen that reproduces itself into countless songs. A botanist of the bar, I remark over the issues in the grass, the greenery that forces us to ponder the points. The sing-along children that run through the fields are the bees that bees love in the hooks, and the blossoms often forget that the song is a whole patch of a garden. I share funny goggles of babbling builds to babies to beckon them to bedazzle more of the bliss they miss. The album, learned as a femme fatale, I treat as earth divine. A field lifted up by the bedrock of a mic controlling talent that has learned to ground herself in ever-perfecting skill sets. Listen with all sense of your senses as I shine as sun is, I always do. Yeah, but that was for Marquis' album, written here, Femme Fatale, which I considered one of the important albums of the last 10 years. Certainly one of the best female MCs, and definitely more to come in this decade from her. Yeah, so moving on along in all these in these segments, let's move along because I always take too long, and I want to do the music. I have some other segments though, but let's do that music. Last week I talked about Nas's competition, and I tried to make the point that there are this year more than any other year. There are a long list of MCs with multiple works. More than one album or EP that they've released, You're throwing some out there. Napoleon the Legend, Zagnif Nori, Rashid Chappelle, Supreme Cerebral, Ras Fresco, Starvin' B, Rome Streets, so many. So what I want to do is I want to highlight one of these catalogs. And we all know that these catalogs could keep multiplying. but I'm picking this person because I really missed a lot of their great work. I actually was going back to a lot of their great work, you know? And I never took the time to write about it. And this is what happens. You miss stuff. And, you know, and he has some albums that are incredible. You know what I mean? Let's see. I want to see some of the other albums that he had. But the guy I want to highlight now is Magno Garcia, right? The El Salvadorian brother out of Chelsea, Massachusetts. Definitely in that mass cipher with all the great MCs there, S.STREET and all of those. And if you look at his catalog, he's done work with all the dope MCs of the underground, from Rome Streets, Flashiest, Clayton, King Arthur, you know, Zagnif Nori, I mentioned. He's done work with all the greats, so everybody salutes him. Everybody knows who he is. Where was the album where I said like he's reached next level? First off, I think that he's a songwriter of persona, and I'll explain that as I go along. But he really tries to give you something different, something that makes you think, something that is about his ideas. But I would say in 2017, when he released the album Chandelier Shining, that's really where I would say where he really started to reach a peak. And he's been on a peak since, but that record has such great music. It's a diversity of producers that he's choosing from, which is always a good look because it means that they know how to construct an album, they know how to arrange it, and he had guys on it. He had Conway on it, he had S.STREET, he had a lot of guys, but the production is diverse and all over the place, and a really great record. And that's where I really started to say, yo, I have to go back and get everything from Magno Garcia. And Magno Garcia, Magno Garcia, if you look for him on the Bandcamp, you'll find all the works on there. And look him up on Instagram, all of that. But I wanna also salute though that these MCs, they're men of integrity, they're men of honor, and it reflects in the music. You know what I mean? And I'm going to read you a post that he had in his own words. He said, "Artistic integrity is something that I've always upheld and fought for. It's highly documented that I've always been on the artist side of whatever issue may arise, so long the issue is genuine and doesn't harm others along the way. With that said, I have no issue if another artist decides that fame and how they receive profits is practiced by the standard the music game has instilled in our minds from its genesis. When I decide I want to take my music off the DSPs, I'm often met with discourse by other creatives and artists. To make it clear, Magno does not care for fame nor money lost if all that comes with me being screwed over for art that I created with my funding and someone else is making money from it. If I never sell another album or song, I am good. So long how it's being distributed is done how I see fit, and I and whoever I collab with own the property of the creation 100%. These are just small vignettes of the type of integrity that his music has instilled. It's a slow process. He's been making music for years, and they've always been everything from the artwork to the song titling to the presentation of the work, the musical choices and the musical direction, just hardcore lyricism at its finest. And here's the interesting thing, right? Because it's the God Day, right? I said, let me choose Magno Garcia because he's an MC that has said that he's influenced by the gods. He sees that God is the black man, and yet he's a Christian. And throughout his works, though, is the ideas of Christianity. And it reminded me of something I say about the music, right? This music in hip-hop was made by us black and brown, but it really elevates itself when it has the ideas of everyone that contributes to it. See, it's not that it only needs black and brown, but it needs people that bring all of their ideas and actually is honest about their perspectives. So I always found it intriguing because usually if I hear like a Christian theme or even like and artists talking about the mystery God, man, I tune out. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, yeah, I'm not going to hear like insight here or anything like that. It's just, it's not insightful. The more I listen to Magno Garcia, though, the more I start thinking about my first mentor in college. My mentor, Professor David Traverso. First Puerto Rican I ever met that had a PhD and had 7 master's degrees, actually, along with the PhD. So, and he also became a bishop, right? So we're at like the opposite ends of the extreme. And I always tried to give value to people's ideas and thoughts because he was one of the first people to actually have me write about the ideas that I was thinking, even if those ideas went against what he bared witness to. And having a student question their own ideas and explore their own ideas in writing is one of the greatest things that a teacher can do for a student. And that's one of the millions of lessons that I've gotten from Traverso over the years. You know what I mean? One of many. But he also Traverso wrote many papers on what I learned about liberation theology. A lot of people don't know what liberation theology is. Liberation theology is the idea, especially in places in Latin America where there is revolution, the concept of revolution being led by a Christianity that demands that we get our heaven now. So it's like an activated Christianity. They're Christians, but they'll be about the revolution. So we'll see the Sandinistas, right? The Sandinistas in the 80s, and they were liberation theologists. They dealt with liberation theology. And a lot of times, listening to Magno Garcia over the week and studying his very large catalog, I don't know if I have everything. I think I do because I like to be a completist. But my collection is about 115 songs deep. You know what I mean? And the thing about it is that there is a great thematic persona, concept, driven warriorship where Christianity for Magno Garcia is fueling his direction to be the vision of that most high honorable man that is venerated in Christianity, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And it doesn't hurt at all, but helps significantly that Magno Garcia has some of the greatest clarity that I've ever heard on the mic. I literally didn't stumble on any bar at all. And, I probably could say that I can listen to lyrics better than most people. Obviously, this has been the trade. But not one bar. I was like, hey, what did he say? It got muffled in the bass line, stuff like that. And some of the stuff that he has, they've got some sloppy cosmic slop on there, like where the bass lines, they terrorize, and they give problems to the MC. But he has a great clarity. He's a slow flower, but not too slow. He's mid-tempo, really. In these days and times, he's mid-tempo. If it was in the 90s, he'd be slow flow. He has clarity. He has intensity, but not a wild intensity. He has again, like I said, that thematic persona, and it becomes a listening experience of his warriorship and his trials and tribulations towards that warriorship that is seeking to lead him to a greater enlightenment, and it's just really, it's really great to listen to, you know what I mean? And he's just really a clever MC, you know what I mean? So the 2020 works, we'll focus on those because there's so many. But if you were collecting, you definitely, if you want to start chronologically, I would tell you to start from the beginning. But if you just want to start from a point where, it isn't too many records, you don't want to get overloaded because you're weak and can't take in too much hip hop. No, I'm just kidding. But 2017, that Chandelier Rising is the one to go with. If you don't like that record, I don't know where the hell you're at. You know what I mean? But the first record, I'll go with the shorter EP, is with producer Blood Blixing. a dope name. I don't know how he came up with that, but he's got it's called Sinister Stones, right? Song titles, I said the song titles are clever. You got a song called Pharaoh, right? At War with Gotham, Stanley Kubrick, Crop Circles, Fix the Scriptures, right? Excuse me, and the title track. So you're like, where the hell is he going with all this stuff? In this record, this really shows his clarity because Blood Blitzing really gives you a real cosmic slop bass line, you know? His bass lines give real coverage, you know, and they really drown out. They're really drowning out, and they have a lot of treble to them. You know, the treble is high on the bass lines here. So what happens is that you get like a gristle, like a, you know, like that. And when you hear emceeing on that, sometimes you miss words. It's hard not to miss words. I gotta tell you, I didn't really miss words. And this one, compared to the next record, really shows more of his battle bars, really shows more of his cleverness, and again, though, I gotta say this though, 2020 Rome Streets features, man, he has been dominating, and this is one of the Rome Streets features on Stanley Kubrick, where I don't know, you know, he's just giving quality out. Rome Streets is on a mission, you know what I mean? One of the great MCs right now, one of the greatest, and Sinister Stones is definitely a really strong startup, but the real Encipher record is a short album, but it's certainly an album, 10 songs, called Like a Thief, that Magno released along with Retrospect. So Retrospect is on the beats. Retrospect really, what he did here with Like a Thief was, and I find it very interesting because it was part of his persona. It was part of Magno's persona to venture into Christianity and how that would play into the black and brown oppression of today. How it doesn't have a context in today's world. And how it has a context on also the micro level of him himself dealing with his own family situations and growing up, and how that's instilled in him. And then just in doing wrong, right? Unlike his other albums, that theme is heavily dealt with and is overtly the point of this whole album. So out of all the works that he has, this one certainly is a more important record in understanding who Magno Garcia is, and deliberately so. Again, the song titles, I like them. You know, they're really well thought out. And I would say some of these notes here say it was a journey to his spirituality, offering the trials and the insights that came about. I'd probably say like one of the songs that really describes that is The Struggles with Wrong. That seem inevitable, which is a real theme that he comes across a lot, is the aptly titled track Romans 7:19, right? Because Romans 7:19, if you look it up in the Bible, it's really about the wrong that one does, you know what I mean? And the wrong that one has difficulty not doing. But the thing about it is that Retrospect, he really, imagine if you could, this sounds crazy, but if you took Kanye's production on Jesus Walks, right, and heavy metaled it out and really made it angrier, you would have Retrospect's production here, you know? So it's like a riff off of that whole thing. It's really intriguing, you know what I mean? Because when you hear a lot of the beats, you could see, like, I could hear what a lot of Kanye stuff, because Kanye, and this is probably why Kanye likes to sample Luther Vandross a lot too, because it's very gospel tinged. Luther Vandross choruses are very gospel, and a lot of Kanye productions end up going into that gospel level. Retrospect does that here, and it works obviously with the concepts, and the drums for him though end up having to be more bombastic, more epic, like, you know. So like, look for the first track, Before the Rooster Crows. Look at Parade of Killing Shaitan. Those two exemplify what I'm talking about. If you hear those two songs, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But then you have songs like Vino where it's drumless, and obviously, we talked about the negative aspects that could come with that on the other segments. But the airy strings here, the distant hymn vocals, that mashed together, that makes it become very cinematic, is very good. And it really works for Magno because Magno has great articulation. A lot of guys articulate on the mic and they sound corny. It doesn't come that way with Magno. And that's probably why Magno intrigues me, because he talks about Christianity and he has themes of positivity through lots of negativity. And none of it sounds preachy. None of it sounds boring, corny. It's like he's achieving something I never thought really could be achieved. You know what I mean? And his bars, like when he says stuff like 9 to 5 is where you bury your dreams. On Vino, he says I rap for people that just never made it. These are constant themes of representing the common man and representing that intersectionality of black and brown people oppressed, and how we deal with things and how we deal with each other as well. So there's a lot of great themes in here, you know what I mean? And I think it all comes into a head on the last two songs, Relationship Ghost, which you made a video for, and Letters to Ambassadors Church, you know what I mean? And those really sum up the work. So even in this album, the sequencing is important. Like if you wanted to listen to it, the sequencing does matter. And as a whole, Magno's catalog is filled with great cleverness that's built on the right word, a forceful inflection, and this liberation theologist persona, a very real, sincere fighter for the moral integrity of our people, the oppression black and brown go through, and a natural synergistic fight against the whack artist, the culture vulture, where the battle bars he throws end up having that same epic meaning, or aura, I should say. So if we're studying all these MCs with multiple works this year, definitely the brother Magno Garcia is definitely one to check out. You know what I mean? It's great to see our brown brothers from other countries, and like El Salvador, where he's from, really give their perspectives and be a voice for all the oppressed. Just I can't say enough about the quality in the music that he throws out there. You know what I mean? And definitely check that out. Magno Garcia. Go to Bandcamp. Just search for Magno Garcia, because some are listed under Magno Garcia Bandcamp, but then they're listed under others like Retrospects Bandcamp and stuff like that. So do your searches, and you'll find all of his works. You could stream them. You can buy them. They're just really great to have. Now, I have some other segments. One segment is very long, so I'm going to let that go. But I just want to do a quick segment. Actually, I'll save that segment for next time, because it could go long as I riff. Since we're talking about music, I'm going to let the hour go, and we'll just talk about, since we only have about a few minutes, just talk about some of the great records that have just recently come out, you know what I mean? And since it's so hard to catch up on, Flea Lord keeps releasing stuff. I've got an album I haven't even heard, you know what I mean? He released a record with where was it? I don't even know the name. It just came out. I remember the cover. I don't have the name. But some of the great records that people may have missed, I gotta tell you, right? As far as like just the quality of MCing getting better, it might be me. I have to research more. But Smooth quietly came out, right? Smooth, SMOOVTH. Smooth came out with a record called Young Smooth 2. Young Smooth 1 was very good. All of Smooth's albums are worth buying, especially the ones with Yellow Point, because you get great beats. For some reason, Young Smooth 2 is one of those records that criminally got blown, under the surface, because there's so much work out there. Man, that record, I'm going to go into detail. I definitely go into detail as we go along in next episodes, but that was a great one. Another one, Peace of the God, Ralphie Reese. He tried to release Shine Mosley 3 at the right time where there aren't that many records, and it's almost impossible to find that right time. what a great vibe that he's able to capture, you know? I always felt that Ralph Reese's love for like Wu-Tang and being Wu-Tang inspired is almost like a detriment to what you get from his records, because they have more, they veer away from the Wu-Tang vibe. They have like a soulful, gritty vibe, but it's not Wu-Tang updated, you know? It's really not, you know? And Ralph Reese can really rhyme, you know what I mean? And he produces all of his work. He's really one of the best MC, probably one of the, he's in the running for the GOAT MC producer in the Invisible Renaissance, if you had to like think about them. Obviously, we have Rock Marciano. We have people like Ka would have to be in that level. But don't sleep. Ralph Reese is there. Tyler Dale, Peace to the God. Black Madonna, a very short work, a very powerful work. Tyler Dale, probably to me, if you want to catch the vibe, you know, especially him and Sauce, man, they capture the vibe of the corner really well, you know? But like when you listen to their music, and like you feel like you're out there in the street, you know what I mean? I be listening to his music, I feel like I'm back living on University Ave again, you know what I mean? And in Pelon, you know? It's crazy. Great tempos, great vibe, you know? Just good stuff, you know? I'm trying to think of singles out here. Singles, you know, guys that just released one album. Definitely got to check out Baltimore's J. Royale. J. Royale released Baltimore Housing Project. A lot of people that love that straight up, straight ahead, boom bap. This is an ideal boom bap record. You know what I mean? Of the highest grade. Of the highest grade. So you get records on that sound like exactly what you're looking for, the typical boom bap. You love it for the quality. But in there, you start to hear some samples where you're like, ooh, you found one there. You know, it isn't like, say, for example, the Ralph Reese record where, you know, all of the records sound weird and different and the sampling is all over the place. You know what I mean? And let's see, single hitters. You know what I mean? Guys with only one album that just recently came out. Yeah, not too many. Not too many. So, you know, on that note, we're gonna keep jumbling this stuff up. We're gonna get you more. And until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. I'm your host, Sunez, Allah, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. Peace to the gods and nerds. Peace to all my low-life family. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.